Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Project Console, episode 20. I have to remember, episode 20, a little to the right. And before we get started, I would like my panelists to introduce themselves.
Welcome to Project Console, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages. I'm Joy Lemonstar, and of all the things I had to deal with today, I gotta deal with two headaches. One at my end and one right here. I can already hear it.
Well, Mr. Red Fox, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, it's me, Mr. Red Fox, owner proprietor BS Busters. I'm glad to be on another one of these Project Console casts because it's always interesting to see it to be on the other end. I'm happy to give my 2 cents, throw some of my thoughts into the
Mm-hmm.
into the pool and see what's happening. So let's do this.
All right, let's start off with Cyberpunk 2077. And so CD Projekt Red decided to move the sliders a little to the right on the PS5 and Xbox Series consoles, as well as fix things that probably should have been fixed when the game first released. And, you know, and for some reason it seems like when a game company does this, I don't know if people are doing this as much anymore. I remember in the past that when a game company fixed the very mess that they created, they get celebrated rather than people being like, "This is how it should have been before." People were like, "Hey, they finally fixed their problem." But yeah, it seems like what they had a live stream, and apparently they said in their live stream that there were so many fixes that they didn't have time to name them all. I'm just kind of like, I jokingly said, I don't remember who it was. No, to a friend. I finally said, Cyberpunk 2077 is finally out of alpha mode. Finally, after several months of waiting, it's finally, after what, almost 2 years, it's finally out of alpha mode and finally in beta mode. So maybe by this time next year, it'll finally go gold. What do you guys think?
Far. I wouldn't go that far. I mean, I know you're exaggerating. I would say, to be more accurate, I would say it's finally out of beta mode. Because basically, if you bought this game for $60 when it first released, you basically paid $60 to be in the beta of Cyberpunk 2077. You basically paid money to be the beta testers. Well, not the guinea pig, but you paid to be a beta tester. And the thing is like the issues with Cyberpunk 2077 are myriad. I stand by this. Okay, looking at the development of this game, like finding out what was actually going on behind the scenes. This game only had like 2 years of earnest development time. Earnest development means that people were actually sitting down, coding what the game was going to be. 2 years. So, I mean, if you're looking at it from that perspective, like, okay, like normally a game of Cyberpunk size, on the bare minimum, would normally have 5 years of development, or even 7. For what they were able to accomplish in 2 years of development, it's astounding. The problem is we have to judge this by the standards, the normal commercial standards of most open world games. And typically speaking, those games have a 5-year development cycle, and they come out just as buggy, if not slightly less. So, I mean, like, on one end, I'm not looking at the developers, because this wasn't... I'm pretty sure someone at Cyberpunk 20 at CD Projekt Red was like, "This game is not ready. We need to delay it another year." And someone in the management team, the executives were like, we have to get this out because our shareholders are going to take their foot and ram it up our behind so far we'll be able to taste boot leather. So I think that they bent to shareholder pressure to get the game out before it was ready. And that hurt that game because, I'm saying this as someone who has played the tabletop game Cyberpunk 2077. I'm saying this as someone who has not only played the tabletop game of Cyberpunk 2077, but I realized that if this game did well, this means that other tabletop properties would get a decent budget and could be adapted to a home computing or console, a video gaming format with some money behind it. This means we could have seen a Vampire the Masquerade with some money behind it, or a Shadowrun with some money behind it, which is really what I want. Like, Cyberpunk is great, but imagine how awesome it would be to play a Shadowrun game, a game with magic and technology, like a Cyberpunk style game, but also having magic and orcs and elves and trolls, all that type, and dwarves and all that type of fun stuff.
Yeah.
While also, having that cyberpunk feel, magic and might, if you will, and technology. That would have been awesome. We won't get that now, or at least it'll be, it'll be its development will be stagnated a little bit because these people wanted to rush something out before it was ready, which is what they did. They rushed it out before it was ready. They were like, well, and not only that, they burnt a lot of their the goodwill that CD Projekt Red had built up. Because I've played The Witcher 3. It's not like a game that I really, really like. I'm not one of those people. The Witcher 3 is one of the best games ever, but comparatively speaking, if you compare it to other open world games that are its contemporaries, like Skyrim or Fallout 4.
I was gonna say, if you're comparing The Witcher to stuff like Skyrim, Fallout and other games of it, Bethesda gets ran over by Project Red.
The Witcher 3 is a great game. I'm not one of those people who's like, oh man, it's the best game I've ever played. But I can appreciate why it got all those accolades, why people who like the game, I can understand why they like the game.
Yeah.
And it deserves it because it's very, especially after they've patched it and gave it all that after initial release support, all that stuff, that is a very good game.
Yeah.
And
they gave away a lot of free DLC too.
Yeah, and the paid DLC was great as well. It wasn't one of those things where this paid DLC is this is stuff that should have been in the base game. Like Fallout, where the DLC for Fallout was for Fallout 4 was a joke because it was all stuff that should have been in the base game.
Yeah.
They burnt all their goodwill to rush out a game. And the thing is, we've said this before. In the video game industry, all you have is your good name. All you have is your reputation. The reason people support certain developers is because of their reputation. Nintendo, we know Nintendo's never going to jack up their mainline games. Never. They would sooner cut off their arms than do that. They're not gonna you're not gonna get a 2D or 3D Mario game that messes up the brand. There might be games that you don't like, but there's never gonna be one where you're like, hey, these people just shat the bed on this one. Even, I would say, the most mediocre 2D Mario game, which in my estimation, I think a lot of people would agree, is
Mario for the 3DS, New Super Mario Brothers 2.
Yeah, New Super Mario Brothers 2, Gold Rush or whatever it was called. Yeah. That game, arguably, it's very mediocre. It's more of Mario Brothers, the New Super Mario Brothers. It's still a relatively good game.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it might be uninspired, but you're not going to say, man, these levels feel like they just got lazy. Or, you know, they shat the bed on this one. You're never going to feel like they compromised quality with their mainline games, most of them. Now, I mean, you know, you could make a subjective argument that, like, you know, there's a lot of stuff missing out of, say, you know, Breath of the Wild or something like that because they were busy porting it over to another console. But I mean, that's a subjective, you know, that's a subjective opinion. That's just how I feel. Like, I mean, the game doesn't really, you know, aside from a few crashes, which, I mean, like, I think it crashed on me like 2 or 3 times. Which, I mean, let's keep it real. If you compare that to other open world games, that's nothing.
I mean, yeah. I mean, the part of it's just weird for a Nintendo game to crash on you.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, it happens. It doesn't happen. It hasn't happened before, or very rarely. That when it does happen, it's an anomaly. You know, it's like if you're a straight A student and then that straight A student gets a C, that's an anomaly. If you're a straight C and D student and they get another C, it's like, well, okay. You know, they're kind of like a victim of their own success in that regard because normally they don't do that. Yeah. But I mean, back to CD Projekt Red, all they had was their reputation, and their reputation has taken a massive hit. And they're kind of stuck because I'm pretty sure they want to be like, okay, like, we don't really want to spend a lot of time fixing a game that we know is not... Like, the sales of that game took a massive hit. It was a commercial success, but it wasn't a success like The Witcher 3 was. But they brought it on themselves. So now they're stuck like, we have to fix this. We're going to have to spend money in order to make this good. But they brought it on themselves.
Man, those glitches were hilarious. It brought us some comedy, at least.
I had the game on PC, and my PC was spec'd out that I wasn't getting those type of glitches on it. So when people are like, hey, this is terrible, I'm like, the game ran okay for me. I mean, I had bugs, but I didn't have like, oh my god, the whole game's going to fall apart. I'm dying. This guy got shot. Like, I didn't have that happen to me. The issue that I had with the game is that there were just a lot of design issues. There's basic things that should have been in that game that are missing. Like you know how we've heard in things where I said that my problem with Breath of the Wild is that there's basic things that should exist in a Legend of Zelda game that aren't in the game. Well, there's basic things if you're making a Cyberpunk game set in a dystopian future that you should have. Like, wouldn't you think in a supposed to be a planned urban metropolis that there would be mass transportation, right? Like buses, a light rail, like a metro. There's a metro in Night City, but guess what?
It's not usable.
You can't use it.
Oh, yeah, that's
I guessed
weird.
it.
That's weird.
Now, if someone made a Cyberpunk, like, this is how I know that they rushed that game, because like if you play The Ascent, which is another Cyberpunk game, if you play The Ascent, there's a metro in that game. In various levels, you can go to the metro, and it's like, man, I want to go back to this area. I can ride the metro back to that place. That makes sense because in a metropolis, one of the key things about planning a metropolis, this goes back to my urban planning classes I took when I was in college, like is the infrastructure and mass transit, because you want to have less cars on the road and more easy ways for people to get from point A to point B without having a lot of traffic. So Night City is supposed to be this...
one of the best ways of getting traffic depleted is having mass transport, right?
Mass transit. How the hell are you going to have a highly planned city set in the future? You have a metro, but you can't use it in game. That's stupid.
Yeah.
I was about to say stupid, and makes you wonder who's in charge of the design.
Well, I mean, it's in the game. There's a mod where they added in there. It was in the game. They cut it because they wanted to get the game out.
Man, I remember when I saw all those vertical slices that they showed the past. For the at least a couple of them. The first one that they showed, that like 20-minute demo, I was like, man, this looks really good. It looks almost too good to be true.
It was. It was. I mean, and like, there's so much stuff that they cut in order to get that game out, and that's what makes it worse. Because, like, there's some games that, like Anthem. Like, Anthem was never going to be a good game. Anthem was never going to be a good game. Ever. It was never going to happen.
Yeah, that was another game that looked way too good to be true. Like,
the sad thing about Cyberpunk is that there's good game in there. There's legitimately, there are some good things in that game. The problem is that they compromise that game in order to get it out, instead of saying, you know what, we have to delay this. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's got to be delayed.
Yeah.
And they just put it out there, and, you know, they were thinking, well, we're going to do what the rest of the industry does. We're going to put out something that's broken, and we'll patch it to be, you know, somewhat stable later on. And we'll get the money, and no one will say anything, and it'll just be okay. Which is what the rest of the industry does. That's what the rest of the industry does. They come out with stuff, and they do it later, you know. And we're seeing this in a lot of companies. No company is immune to this lazy form of putting out products. Okay, they're all guilty of it at this point. Sony, Nintendo, Microsoft. Microsoft released their marquee title, which was Halo. Halo used to be synonymous with Microsoft. And guess what? Guess what? They put out half the dang game. Half the dang game. And yeah, it was free, but still, half a game. Have we ever heard of this before? I haven't.
Free game.
Yeah, and you know, at some point, you just gotta look at all this and be like, I'm not buying it. You know, that's what people have got to say. It's like, I'm not buying this. You know, in this state, I'm not buying it. And you know, people did get severely upset to the point where Sony had to take down the game, and then refunds eventually were issued.
Yeah, but I mean, there is no way Quality Control played that game and didn't know it was going to be a broken mess. There's no way.
I mean, you knew the game was going to be busted when all the reviewers were like, CD Projekt Red said we can't show any gameplay footage of our experience.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, this game is busted.
Just like that other game, that other game that came out that was like fundamentally broken. Like, if a developer says that you can't show the game and there's a review embargo for a movie, if there's a review embargo on a movie, like, where they're like, oh, you can't talk about this movie until the night it comes out.
There's something weird about it.
Yeah, that movie's trash. Yeah. Hot garbage.
The movie is trash. If a movie comes out and it's fundamental, if a video game, if there are review embargoes on video games, okay, if there are review embargoes on video games, and you aren't hearing about the game, like, you can't, like, they can't talk about the game, or you automatically, your BS detectors need to be going off. I smell a fresh cow pie on the floor. Did that cow just dump one on the floor? Yeah. That's total bovine scatology. Now, and I know what some people are going to say, but Mr. Red Fox, didn't you buy Cyberpunk 2077 at launch? Yes, I did. I did not pay full price for it. I used my Amazon gift card that I got for returning something, and I paid like $30 for that game. All right. Which, I mean, you know, If I'd paid $20 for it, I'd be angry. 30, it's a fun experience.
Yeah.
You know, the amount of money you spend on something is commensurate with how angry you get about it. It's like if you spend $80 at a steak restaurant and your steak is terrible, you're going to get very upset because you spent $80, you know, per person. So if you like took a date there, it's like 160 plus a tip, 200. Like you spent $200 and the food was terrible. You have the right to be as upset as you physically want to be because you paid a lot of money for something you were expecting to be a really good experience. Now, if you go to a restaurant that has steak on the menu and you paid $20 per plate, I mean, I don't know what you're expecting. You know, the steak can't be that good
per steak.
if it was $20.
You might want to question your taste buds, buddy.
I mean, it might
$20 is
not.
still a lot.
Well, it might. Well, I mean, for steak, depending on the cut of the meat, like if they're saying that it's if they're telling you that it's like ribeye and they're charging you $20, that ain't ribeye. And if it is, it's a very bad cut of the ribeye. Nothing wrong with ribeye, but it's like it depends. How much you spend is commensurate with how much you're going to feel like, okay, am I being taken advantage of? Like I said, like I paid $30 for mine. Now, to be fair, if I had spent, you know, 60, I'd be very upset. But I only spent 30, so it's like, I don't feel gypped. But I do understand where other people are coming from when they say they feel gypped because, you know, they had expectations. And CD Projekt Red, I mean, you know, there's nothing wrong with failing expectations. But when you release a product that you know is fundamentally unfinished and you charge people $60 for it, you know, and they hurt their reputation. You know, and that's them. They hurt their reputation. You know, I don't care either way. I don't have a dog in the fight, but you know, that was them. They're the ones who destroyed their reputation. You know, but that's all I'll say about it. You know, it's a bad thing all around because, like I said, there is a good game in there, but like every time CD Projekt Red could have made a right turn, they made a left turn. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this could have been a good choice. Nah, we gotta F it up.
Yeah. I mean, this is what happens when you're. Well, it doesn't always happen, but it seems like with certain companies, when they become a slave to their investors, they just screw it up, and you know, that might be part of it. Another part of it's obviously they want to, you know, just plain old simple greed. And speaking of greed, Horizon Forbidden West. You know, Sony still, you know, they said, oh, you can get a free upgrade if you get the PS4 version of the game and put it on the PS5, but they're using certain tricks to get people to pay that $70 price tag for moving the sliders a little bit to the right.
Yeah. Not surprising.
Yeah.
You know, Sony's been doing this for a while. Like, you know, upping the price of their online to like, what was it, like 100, something like that, 120. Can't remember. I know they upped the price of their online. First charging for their online, which is not very good.
I think it's like I think they charge 60 now. I think they were charging 50. Microsoft
they upped it.
I think they upped it to 60.
Well, you know what I mean. Basically, upping the price of a mediocre service that every 3 or 4 months is going down, is being taken down. I'm like, you guys haven't figured out how to do cascading, how to have cascading servers. So when you work on one server, another one picks up the load for a short period of time while you work on it, so you don't have your servers going out. Apparently, they haven't figured that out yet at Sony Land. A huge tech company, a huge tech and entertainment company, but they haven't figured out cascading servers yet. Something that the rest of the industry, got a while ago, but whatever. It's just bad. It's just, it's just, and then Sony, lying to people, because that's what Sony does. They lie.
Yeah. So
That should be.
basically, if you want a physical copy of the PS5 game, you have to pay $70, and I think they're doing some weird stuff with the digital version as well. So yeah, yeah, they're just being weird about it. I don't particularly I don't get it. I mean, I do get it. Obviously, they want to make as much money off of this product as they can, while screwing everybody else over. But
I mean, it's Sony. That's all I can say.
yeah, yeah,
Like
Not surprised.
people don't understand that Sony, like, what people don't understand is that Sony is not in a great financial position. Okay, they have I think they sold off 2 divisions or shuttered them or something. They have like 13 divisions. At any given time, only 5 or 6 of them are actually profitable. Of those 5 and 6, like, maybe 3 of them are making huge amounts of money. The other 3 are just like, they're doing okay. So, I mean, it's like they're constantly having to juggle stuff around in order to make it seem like they're doing okay, when really, doing so well. And it's been like this for Sony for a long time. So, I mean, like, they're going to do what they need to do in order to make money. And, even though from looking at Horizon Zero Dawn on the PS4 and the PS5, aside from a few graphical flourishes and embellishments, it's functionally the same game. There are no features that it's utilizing on the PS5 that, is like, oh my god, this is amazing. You know what I mean?
yeah.
There's been worse, but it's up there.
There's a lot of games that do that. But I mean, the thing is that they're upcharging people. Like, if we got angry at every company that basically had a next gen version of a game that was fundamentally the same as the last gen version of the game, we'd have to get angry at everybody. Okay? Because, I mean, we'd have to get angry at Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, Sega. I mean, Sega did the same. Well, actually, no, Sega didn't, because a lot of their next gen version of their games were different from their last gen version.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's something that's become a big thing in modern console gaming the last two gens. That's just it's just the way it is, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, with Nintendo, at least they add something, but even still, even like, for example, Mario Kart, all that stuff should have been there on the Wii U version. Same with Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze. I mean, they added Funky Kong to the game, and then still charged you $60.
Funky Kong's basically easy mode. They made a game that's already kind of, for most more casual gamers, is already a little too hard. Even though if you compare it to the old Donkey Kong Country games, it's
Easier.
Yeah, it's slightly easier. It's except the difficulty in the new Donkey Kong Country games comes in that a lot of the difficulty is just unfair.
Yeah.
It's just unfair difficulty. Like, it's unfair that, there's surprise enemies popping up in certain places or there's a hidden platform. I think the rare games are a little bit more fair in their difficulty because it's like, well, I missed that jump, you know, or
Yeah.
I wasn't anticipating, these rocket barrels are spinning real fast. Whereas there's some stuff in Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze and Donkey Kong Returns, where I'm like, this is just cheap.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you know, but back to Sony. Yeah, Sony. I mean, Sony's going to do what they need to do in order to make their money. Darn the consequences. They don't care about the consequences. They want to get paid. And as a business, I can appreciate that. But the problem is that they're screwing over their fan base. You know, not to mention this game is probably eventually going to come to PC anyway. So, you know, like I don't know why people are like, I got to have it on the PlayStation. It's like there's so much stuff coming out. Are you going to have time to play all these darn games? This is
That
my
depends
question.
on which games they aim for.
No, just in general. Like, okay, here's what's coming out. Just okay. There's Horizon. Okay, the sequel to Horizon Zero Dawn. Okay, then you've got what else is coming out in March? Forget. Like all this stuff is coming out, and I'm like, when are you gonna have time?
Yeah.
I mean, I like playing games as much as the next person, but when are you gonna have time to play all these darn games?
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of these games. I don't know why they lump games together in like certain part. I mean, it used to be during the Christmas season they would lump all these big games together, or now it's like during the late winter, early spring they're starting to lump games together. And yeah, summer, which is just a complete, you know,
It's still kind of dry.
summer's dry. It's
Except for
just
Nintendo, you'll get like a second tier Nintendo game in the summer.
yeah, yeah,
But like aside from Nintendo, everyone else just front loads their stuff or back loads their stuff. It's either going to be in late winter, so like February, March, or it's
yeah,
going to be in the holiday season.
yeah.
It's annoying. Like
That's
like
something I expected already.
well, the thing is
That like
like when you're a kid, that serves a purpose. But when you're an adult who has money all year round, it's like I could better play these games if they came out all year round instead of you just lumping everything in at one time of the year. Like it's annoying.
yeah, that's the thing. I understand why they're going that direction, and it makes me kind of laugh because, well, some people say that these games are the way of the future, and somebody has to remind them that they still are able to make screw ups.
Yeah. Anyway, that's just my opinion. I could be wrong.
Well, in other news, all right, is there anything else you'd like to say? Or we
That's
move on
it.
to that's it. Other news, Capcom announced a couple of things. I believe it was yesterday. Capcom announced one thing that they announced was this uh,
Collection.
fighting game collection. Let me, which has a fairly decent array of games. Um,
And first release of a few games, if I got it right, like Red Earth.
Yeah. So
that's finally getting re-released. I think it was in a few collections back in the day.
So you got
I think if I got it right, that they got Darkstalkers, Street Fighter, Red Earth, and Puzzle Fighter.
They got Darkstalkers, Night Warriors, Vampire Savior, Vampire Hunter 2, Vampire Savior. I'm surprised at 2. Surprised they don't have Vampire Hunter 1. I guess that was pretty bad or something.
No, Vampire Hunter 1 is Dark Slayers.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, they change. Yeah. You know how Capcom changes their names and twists stuff around, but yeah, you basically get all the Darkstalker games.
Okay. Red Earth, Cyberbots, Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo, Hyper Street Fighter 2, which is kind of weird that they're including that game, just for the fact that I think it's already in the Street Fighter collection. And then Super Gen Fighter Mimics. Yeah, so those are the games that are included. I've heard good things about Darkstalkers.
Yeah.
The other games I've never heard of. I'll probably pick this up to check this out. What do you guys think?
If they charge like $40 or $50 for it, it'll be fair. I don't think this is a $60 release, but $40 or $50, it's fair. Not going to be upset by it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a Darkstalkers fan, getting those games coming anywhere is a win. Because Capcom, God knows, they have done nothing with Darkstalkers aside from that PSP
re-release.
Well, it wasn't a re-release; it was a brand new game, but they put it on the PSP. I'm like, why would you put Darkstalkers on the PSP?
I mean, I think the most. I think the most we've seen of Darkstalkers is like costumes for various characters. Like Chun-Li has a costume, and Street Fighter V of one of the Darkstalkers characters, but that's about it. And I know people have been wanting a new Darkstalkers game for a long time. So
yeah. If this does well, they might actually finally do a new Darkstalkers game. Although, really, I think if they want to do something cool, they should do what they did with Capcom versus cross Street Fighter. I mean, Capcom's cross Sega, cross Namco. Those games where they basically would like go and do cool stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where you could do some, like, if they basically did like a spinoff of Darkstalkers. Because the thing is, unfortunately, Darkstalkers for a lot of people is just a Street Fighter clone. Except instead of it being like your classic Street Fighter tropes, it's like the universal monsters.
Yeah.
Which is just like, okay, I guess that's cool. You know, it's not really interesting or anything, you know?
Yeah.
So maybe do something different with it. You know, maybe do like a Darkstalkers beat 'em up, like a Final Fight or something. That'd be kind of cool. Yeah. You know, like mix it up. If you're gonna bring back Darkstalkers, don't just make another 2D game that would just be a Street Fighter clone. Because that's what Darkstalkers originally kind of felt like. It was just a Street Fighter clone. It's a clone of something they already made. It's like those myriad of Scooby-Doo clones back in the day, you know?
Yeah.
Where Hanna-Barbera was cloning themselves. It was like, come on, man.
Oh, yeah.
Change it up.
That was a waste. That was a waste. But yeah, it's also going to have online play with rollback netcode, which I'm not really sure what that is, but apparently that's
It's the best netcode you can use for fighting games at this moment in time. It means that if you're going to play this game competitively, which some people do play Darkstalkers competitively, you're going to get the best online playability.
Oh, the collection being out, you might actually see more competitive play out of some of these older games. So
Yeah, I'm down with it.
yeah, so that was good news. Bad news from Capcom is they announced Street Fighter 6,
Yeah.
and they're not. It looks like they're still sticking with the 3D art style, which
Oh
is
god.
disappointing. Which is disappointing because a lot of these Arc System fighting games that have come out in the past couple of years, they look absolutely stunning with their 2D graphics. For some reason, they have like King of Fighters and even Street Fighter have to stick to this ugly 3D art style. I just don't
They
get it.
probably have the assets, and it's easier for them to just copy those, just like take the base models and change a few things than to actually do some new stuff.
It could be that, or it could be they might utilize their RE engine. Uh, 'Cause I know they used it for Devil May Cry, and I thought that game looked pretty decent, but I don't know
I
if that's gonna work for a Street Fighter game.
I would normally agree with you, except for one small thing. Street Fighter Five uses Unreal,
Yeah, yeah, I know Street
so
Fighter Five uses Unreal. I didn't because since they have since they have their own engine.
yeah, but
I
I don't think they're gonna use their own engine. They might use assets from Unreal in that engine. Um,
This is a
because I think
possibility.
Unreal's very like you can
Complex.
no,
No, very,
Unreal's like a good all-purpose engine. It can do. It's not great at any one thing, but it can do a little bit of everything.
yeah,
Which is what makes it useful. Like if you want to make an RPG in Unreal, you can. If you want to make a racing game in Unreal, you can. If you want to make a fighting game in Unreal, you can. Like Unreal's a good catch-all engine. Um, like Unity is also really good, but the thing is, you have to really know Unity in order to use it properly, and you have to put the time in to master it. And if you don't master Unity, your stuff's going to look bad. And unfortunately, the free license to use Unity, typically speaking, comes from cheap developers who are doing asset flips on Unity, and that's why you see, oh, made in Unity, and it's just really bad because the only people who use the free version of Unity tends to be people who don't really know Unity all that well.
yeah,
So you go and it sees made in Unity, it's like, oh, this is gonna be bad.
yeah,
I honestly have to weirdly disagree because Unity is not always bad. It just has its mixed bag.
Joel, I didn't say Unity is always bad. I said that the reason Unity gets a bad rap is because there are people who use Unity. Like you can either use the premium version of Unity with a license where you don't have to put made in Unity on it, or you can use the free version of Unity, which one of the license stipulations for using that version of Unity is using you have to put made in Unity in the credits in the opening sequence of your game. Problem is that a lot of the people who use the free version of Unity and release those games commercially, the games are really bad, and there's Unity made in Unity plastered all over it. One of my favorite games of all time, which is actually incredibly well made, is Dragon Quest VIII. That's made in Unity. It's amazing.
yeah,
Okay, I was just being sure because I know Unity has its moments. It's just that I was trying to be sure it wasn't being shafted on because there's been at least some good games that have been released with Unity.
No,
I
there
didn't
are good
know.
games made in Unity. The problem is that if you have a sea, it's kind of like this, right? If you have a sea of one group of, if you have a sea, like if all the people that are caught doing something are people who are who are from a certain part of town, right? Even if statistically there's more people overall who are from a different part of town doing it, people are going to have confirmation bias and think, well, that means that people from that part of town are criminals. When in actuality, that might not be the case. It's just the data you're being given is from a very small sample source. And that's basically what happens with Unity. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with any engine. It's all in who's using it and how they use it. But in the case of you know, Unreal, a lot of people like using Unreal. I don't know why, but
the I'm gonna I'm gonna ask if you think Frostbite's a bad engine.
I think when the people working with Frostbite know what they're doing, it can be awesome. Hence, Battlefield 2. There's been good games made in the Frostbite engine. The problem is that, with
How specialized it is?
no, with the new Battlefield that they did, the one 2042, they basically used a new version of the Frostbite engine, and they once again rushed to get the game out when it was not ready. They should have delayed it, and they didn't. So you got a game that was fundamentally broken.
Yeah.
If there's one thing we've learned in this cast thus far, it's that people should stop rushing games out the door in order to meet an arbitrary deadline.
Also, I learned something new. I didn't know Dragon Quest VIII was made in Unity. I didn't know Unity.
Yes, it was.
I didn't know Unity has been around that long.
Yeah.
Unity's been around for quite a while.
I didn't hear about it. I guess I really didn't. Well, then again, I really wasn't paying it back in those days. I really wasn't paying attention to engines and stuff like that.
Well, I noticed it because I played that game so much, and it was one of my favorite Dragon Quest games. And you go to the opening thing, and it says this game was developed in Unity, which means that was the engine they used to make it, and it's amazing. That's a really well made game.
Yeah, yeah. And plus, it's being developed by people that know how to make games. So
Yeah,
compared to a lot of these cheap people who are just looking to make a quick buck.
yeah. The engine, it just depends on how much you're willing to spend in order to make your game good. Like how much do you understand of the hardware?
Yeah.
And the software, the engine. Because Bethesda uses the Gamebryo engine, which is a derivation of NetImmerse. But and people are like, oh, those games are terrible. Oh, they're so buggy. But Divinity Original Sin 2 is a game made in NetImmerse, and that game's really good. So just
Yeah.
it just depends on who makes the game. It's not the engine; it's the game.
Yeah. Well, the new logo looks kind of for Street Fighter 6 looks kind of dumb. I don't know.
It looks like a placeholder logo.
Yeah.
It looks like they wanted to communicate it, and they haven't finalized the logo yet. So they just went with, we'll just put this up there because it doesn't even look like the other game.
No.
Although, hopefully
When
they
I look at
learned.
it again, it makes me wonder. How long is it going to take for this game to come out? Since if anything, I see where there's going to be a lot of polish being put in.
I think it'll
Hopefully
probably
they learn. Sorry.
I think it'll probably take about a year or so because they didn't even have consoles at the end of that trailer. You have to go on their website to figure out which systems they're developing it for. So it might still be a ways out, especially after the leak. I don't know if they might be being a little more careful about how they release this game because this announcement was leaked at least was like 2 or 3 years ago.
Year ago.
A year
That's
ago.
when they had that leak that said that they're working on a new Final Fight and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised that they've been working on this for a while because, God knows they shat the bed with Street Fighter V. It missing all those modes at launch.
The slow trickle down.
The game looking like hot buttered booty.
Yeah.
At launch. It's hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully they've learned a thing or two.
Hopefully, but it's Capcom. I mean, the thing is that like some games Capcom's been doing well with lately, like Resident Evil.
Yeah.
Capcom has really stepped up their game with Resident Evil.
I was about to say, for every Resident Evil that they put some effort into, there's some games that make you wonder, why are you neglecting this?
Yeah, but I mean, like I said, it's Capcom. You're not going to get everything from Capcom. Like I said, Resident Evil, they've actually stepped up on. Like, Resident Evil is much better than it has been in a while. But,
For every Resident Evil, there's something like Project Justice or some other games like the Final Fight series.
yeah, well, I never really cared about Project Justice, but I can see why people would like that game. But, because I think Project Justice was always more obscure. But there are, like, for me, if a game has more than 3 entries, then, and Capcom hasn't done anything with it, it's being neglected. Like,
Yeah,
Final Fight had
Darkstalkers.
Darkstalkers, Final Fight. There's a lot of games Capcom has done nothing with, and I'm like, come on, guys, do something with it.
Yeah.
I don't care what you do, just don't just have the stuff just sitting around there, it's just languishing away. And the thing is, with the way indies are now, you don't have to spend a lot of money. You don't have to spend a lot of money to make a game good. You don't have to if they do Final Fight, it doesn't have to be a $60 game. Look what Arc System Works did with River City, like River City Ransom and River City Girls, right?
Yeah.
They licensed it out to WayForward, and WayForward's been making some good games with it.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to, not everything has to be like a big, huge. I mean, I would just love to have another Final Fight game. Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't have to look stunning with like the highest resolution HD graphics. As long as it's
Good.
as long as it's good. But in any case, next topic.
That's all I want. All I want is a good Final Fight.
Is that so much to ask?
I just want a good Final Fight. I just want a good Final Fight.
I
I don't even need it to be really expensive. I don't need it to be really grandiose. I just want a Final Fight. Just, with the original 3 characters, maybe add the characters from Actually, do all 3. Do all the characters from all 3 games. If they can make a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 4, the people who did what was the name of that game? Streets of Rage 4. If they could do that for TMNT 4 and Streets of Rage 4, then there's no excuse for there not being a Final Fight 4.
Yeah.
Other than Capcom just being jerks about it. Or just hesitant to put the money out for it. But they're still doing a better job than Konami, so.
Makes me wonder what the heck Konami is up to.
Nothing. You want to know what Konami's up to?
I was about to say, between air and vaporware.
No, I was going to say, imagine someone taking their thumb, sticking it up, undoing their pants, and sitting on their thumb. That's what Konami's doing. Okay? They are doing nothing. Nothing!
Yeah. But in any case, our next topic is E calls a meeting to discuss what went wrong with Battlefield 2042. And that meeting must have been 8.5 days long, because there's a lot of things that went wrong with that game.
I was gonna say, please tell me that they did not try to make an excuse of how Halo was the reason it turned out
That
bad.
that 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 was one of their weird excuses. Well, Halo is better polished or some nonsense.
Well,
Oh, Pete.
that's not exactly what they said. The Halo excuse was it was very hard for people to like Halo came out and the online was free.
Yeah.
And people could play that, and it was like whether you like the online or not, compared to Battlefront 2042, it was still a much more polished game.
Yeah.
And people were like, "Oh, well, I don't need to play this game." And so, I mean, that kind of did hurt them, you know.
Yep.
It's like if you have an example of something done well, it's really hard for you to look back at the stuff done poorly and be like, "Oh, well, give them a pass." And apparently, people didn't, and they used that. That was the excuse. It wasn't that Halo was the reason that it did poorly. It's basically Halo came out and people were like, "Oh, wait, there's actually good games that came out,"
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't. I mean, I can't. I mean, like, I'm not saying that's the sole reason that game was. That's the sole. I mean, what really? I think that game needed another year in the oven, and they pushed it out, and I don't know why. Because, like, I don't think anyone would have been angry if they had said, "Hey, look, this is a new version of Frostbite. This is a new version of the Frostbite engine. The pandemic happened, so that put us back 6 months. And to teach people, even people who are familiar with the base of the engine, the new peculiarities of the new engine, that would take at least some time. And we're gonna have to push this back another year. But that's a management issue. That's why the guy who's in charge of DICE got fired.
Yeah.
Because he didn't have the cojones to say, "Look, this game has to be delayed a year." Darn my us hitting our numbers, because if this game comes out in the state that it's in right now, it's gonna be really bad, and that's why they fired him. That's why they were like, "Oh, you're gonna actually let people put this product out." I'm amazed, because normally EA will put out anything and nobody gets fired.
Yeah.
So they're serious when they're firing people, especially someone high up there.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially, one of the bigger money makers. Or But yeah, 2042. It's a very ambitious game. Probably should have delayed it for at least maybe a year and a half before releasing it. But again,
I'd say a year.
I was about to say, if that's their ambition, they might need to do some reevaluations.
I would say if they had delayed it a year, and I know people are going to say, "Well, I like Battlefield." Here's what they should have done, and I'm not a PR person, but I do know some things about it. If they had delayed it a year, and then been like, "You know what? We're going to do for you guys. We're going to delay the game for a year. We're going to have an open public beta for people who are interested in the game, so that we can get community feedback on what needs to be added and taken and added and put back in." But instead, like, DICE was like, "We're going to do what we want to do because we want to be like Call of Duty." And, this is what we get. You get a game where a hovercraft is driving up the side of a 90-degree building. Driving up the side of a 180-degree building.
No, the problem with that is that Call of Duty is more of an arcade shooter with in quotations realistic I would say more realistic looking weapons, while Battlefield always kind of, at least in the earlier Battlefield games, put itself as as more of a realistic shooting, more of a realistic war game with you know, and then all of a sudden they wanted to chase Call of Duty because EA wanted that money, and well, now look where it's at.
Yeah, they literally shot themselves. There's a saying where I'm from. It says, "Stick a quarter in your ass because you played yourself." EA, stick a quarter in your ass. You played yourself.
Oh yeah.
Actually, take a roll of quarters and stick them up your ass because you played yourself.
Yep. Oh yeah, they sure did.
Let's rush this game out in order to compete with Call of Duty. The Call of Duty made by the company that announced that they're delaying the next Call of Duty game because all the effed up stuff that's been going on at their company. You want to be like them? Really? Yeah. Okay.
Who knows what sort of? Well, who knows what sort of? I mean, with all the crazy things coming out about some of these, like Activision and Ubisoft. I mean, who knows? EA might be next.
Already had their whole we work our employees to where after a game comes out they have to take medical leave off for like 6 months.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy.
If you have a job,
the kind of stuff that's the kind of stuff I usually see in Japan.
If you have a job where you have to take like months off at a time
because of medical conditions,
because they work you so hard that you almost have you have a neurological breakdown, that's not a good job. The only job I can think of that's like that is if you're a social worker, because some social workers really deal with some emotionally disturbing stuff. Yeah, well, I mean, like they're overworked, they have a huge caseload, and some of it is really emotionally disturbing. But I mean, that kind of makes sense, like it's emotionally disturbing stuff. These are people making video games.
Yeah.
It's not like they're ER doctors who are seeing blood, guts, gore, people dying from preventable stuff all the time. No, these are people making video games.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder what goes on in their office, if that's true.
Because of serial crunch, people working 80, 90, 100 hours a week. If you're working 15 hours a day, right? You get to work at 7:30. Get your coffee or whatever, and then you go sit down and you start working. You're there from 8, 8, 9, 10, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, right? So that's 15 hours, okay? You're there from 8 to 11 p.m. You go home, you get some sleep, you wake up, you come back to work. If you're doing that 7 days a week, 4 weeks a month for like
you barely got
2
free
years,
time, you're likely going to burn something.
Yeah, you're going to be burnt out. And there's no reason for it other than these companies have crunch culture.
Yeah, you figure. Yeah, that's. I don't know. It's just kind of like, why not have. I've brought this up many times, but it'd just be smarter for these companies to have smaller games to help build up their bigger games, so that they had more time to work on these big games, and they wouldn't have to, practically
have
destroy
crunch.
People.
Destroy people's lives,
destroy
marriages.
Lives.
Yeah. Keep them from hanging out with their kids.
Yeah, I was in a. There was this guy in another server that I'm in who was in the game development and had to get out. He got burned out, and now he just makes mods of various different games as a hobby. But yeah, he just ended up getting burned out of game development because of the pressure that a lot of these developers are under. from these publishers and from the publishers are probably under a great deal of pressure from the shareholders, and it's not something's got to give when it comes to game development.
Yeah, and no one wants to talk about it. People want to pretend like it's not an issue, but it is an issue because if it wasn't an issue, it wouldn't be happening.
Yeah.
If it wasn't an issue, like, you know, like it's not normal for someone to work for a year and then after a game gets out, they have to take like paid medical leave in order to get themselves back together. It's not normal. That's abnormal.
Yeah.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
That's not okay.
Yeah.
And yet that's what we have to deal with is, well, not we, but that's what, I mean, people wonder why are our games so broken? Why aren't things coming out the way they should? Because of stuff like this.
Yeah.
Because developers are being ground into the ground by publishers.
Yeah.
If you mention this, people get angry. Oh, don't say that. I just want to play my games because gamers are like junkies. They don't care as long as they get their fix.
Yeah.
Well, as long as my game comes out, that's all that matters. I just want to just don't get in the way of me playing my stupid little game. Because that's all that matters. As long as I get to play my kerfuffle, my Call of Booty number 42, that's all that matters.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, you guys are like junkies.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they need an Alcoholics Anonymous for like gamers or something. So
they do
rehabilitation or something.
We want to talk to you like that. I wish this was my cast so I could have that meme with the black guy who had the most epic cry ever. We love you. We just want you to stop playing all these games all the time. I know in my heart I still love you. That is the most epic.
That sounds like Jerry Springer.
No, it was Intervention where it was this guy who he apparently was like, he used to be a boxer, but then he got into drugs and like a lot of stuff happened. He abandoned his family, but he had the most epic cry ever. He actually was a really interesting guy because he was a professional boxer for a time, and he knocked this racist guy out, which goes to show, be careful who you mess with. Occasionally, they might be a professional boxer in their past life, and they might knock you the F out. But it's a meme. It's a really awesome epic cry. I like it. But it's just one of those things that, if people were doing an intervention, it's like they should do that. You cannot buy a new game for 5 years. Just play your backlog.
Yeah.
And gamers, I mean, I guarantee there'll be some people scratching at their neck like a crackhead. Come on, baby. Just let me play one new AAA game. No. Come on, I'll suck you. It's like, no, get away from me.
The thing is, it's just I've seen this over the years. I used to follow a lot of gaming channels. I would see people, they would buy a game. Every game that came out, they would have it, and some of these people would trade in these games like a week later, get the other game because a lot of these people can't afford, especially some of these YouTubers, some of these really smaller channels. They can't afford to be buying games like this, so they have to keep trading games in so they can afford the new game. It's just a vicious cycle.
Unless you're on Twitch where you're getting paid, there's $5 subscriptions and you get half of that. So if you have like 1,000, 1,200, 1,500 subscribers, that's a nice chunk of money. So if you're getting paid like thousands of dollars, that's not bad. There's nothing wrong with you've got a pretty decent business model. But if you can't afford something, you shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Like when I grew up in a single parent household. There was times when my parents couldn't afford stuff.
Yeah.
And there was just certain stuff I couldn't do.
Yep. I mean, and
And when you
what
can't
I,
afford stuff, you're just like, well, I guess I won't be doing that. There's nothing wrong with not, if you can't afford something, with not being a part of it.
yeah, I mean,
There's no shame in saying, hey, I can't afford this. I mean, because you'd rather say I can't afford this than buy it, and then you're like in financial distress because you bought something you can't afford.
yeah.
You know, or you buy a game that you really don't like playing.
Yeah.
I mean, because there's a lot of games that are like that. People buy these games and they're like, "Oh, wait, I don't even like this game."
Yeah.
You know, I don't know why people don't understand that. They think everything has to be what they like, but you know, everything's not going to be what you like.
Yeah.
That's what makes life wonderful. That there's variety.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. But Nintendo wouldn't let people share information about the playtest for their Wii Sports Wii Sports sequel, or their Wii whatever, their Switch game. That's Wii Sport. What's the official name of that game?
It's Wii Sports for the Switch.
Yeah, Wii Sports.
Basically,
Yeah, it's Wii Sports
I
for
mean,
the
that's
Switch.
what I'm calling it. It might be called something else, but it's Wii Sports for the Switch. That's what it is.
But yeah, apparently Nintendo wouldn't allow people to share information about the playtest that I think either happened last weekend or is going to
This
happen
weekend.
this weekend. This
This
weekend is
weekend,
going to
yeah.
happen. Okay.
No, the weekend that just passed.
This weekend. So it
Yeah.
happened last. Yeah, people weren't allowed to share stuff on social media about it, which I find kind of weird, especially since it's open. Uh,
I
maybe
don't know why
because
people
they're.
are surprised.
I mean,
Um, it probably wasn't that good because Nintendo's servers aren't like Nintendo is not spending like hundreds of millions of dollars to put like new servers up. They aren't going to do that
yeah.
because Nintendo is cheap.
Yeah, yeah, uh, yeah, and then yeah, yeah, I'm not surprised, but I just figure since it was open, I didn't really hear anybody talk about it either. So it either wasn't that good or, oh yeah, that's right, people aren't allowed to talk about it. Like yeah, I guess you're not even allowed to talk about your experience. With it on social media. I don't think you're allowed to. Not only are you not allowed to show images or video of the gameplay, but I don't think if you have a channel, I don't think you're allowed to talk about it either. It's just
Yeah, I mean, I think that maybe the online just wasn't that good. Um, because if it was good, there wouldn't be a need to hide anything. I could be wrong though, but
and
I don't think so.
maybe the Nintendo's obviously a bit of control freaks, and they want to be able to control the message of the game, and they don't want people, if there's any hitches with the game, they don't want people to share it and think that's indicative of the final product or whatever.
Yeah,
I
but
don't know. It
it's
doesn't
a
make any
server
sense.
test. Obviously, that's not going to be indicative of the final product.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
it's a server test,
I mean, everybody knew the server test was going to happen. So even if somebody uploaded video, people would be like, "Oh, well, that must just be from the server test." I don't know what they're thinking. It's just, yeah, you're probably right. It probably wasn't that good.
You know, it's like Sony. Like Sony isn't gonna crow about. Sony's not gonna crow about their numbers unless they're good numbers.
Yeah.
Like Microsoft isn't going to crow about how many, and no one talks about their numbers unless they're in a favorable light, except for Nintendo typically. But I guess now they want to be all coy about it. But typically speaking, it's like if someone doesn't want to tell you what their GPA is, it's probably a bad GPA.
Yeah.
If someone doesn't want to tell you how much money they make, it's probably because they think it's not enough, or they don't want to be judged by either it's too much or it's not enough or something. I don't know. But in terms of Nintendo, they probably don't. They probably want people to. They're probably going to sell this game, which should have been a pack-in title for the original for the Switch when it launched, instead of that 1-2 Switch BS. And they probably are going to charge $60 for it. Plus, they're going to use this to sell their online membership. Here's the problem: Nintendo's online isn't very good. So, like, people are going to be like, "I'm not going to get this until they fix their online." And Nintendo wants to. Nintendo. All of this is so that they can basically get people to buy their online. It's all about the. It's all about the recurrent the recurrent transaction, yearly transactions.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's what they want. They want that recurrent yearly transaction.
Yeah.
And I mean, you know, like that's why they brought back Wii Sports, because they want that recurrent yearly transaction. They want people to buy their $50 online, pay $50 a year for a handful of N64 games that should have been there day one. That's what this is about.
Yeah.
You know, and people shouldn't be surprised by that. I don't know why people. I can't believe, really, you can't believe that this happened, because I'm not. This is within my expectations.
Yeah.
But then again, I'm not. You know, like I said, I'm not. I'm rarely, if ever, surprised right now. I'm very much stoic and non-emotionally involved in what's going on with these companies.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Yeah, like I've said before on these casts, it's like I'm just more, people get wrapped up in power arguments and who's selling the most arguments. I just want to play games and not worry about all this other nonsense. Is there going to be what games are coming to these platforms, and are they going to be any good? Like everything else is irrelevant to me. You know,
I mean,
it's
I don't
not.
mind talking power
Yeah,
if it's germane to the conversation.
yeah,
But the issue is that the only thing I can go by is the reality that I see in front of me. The reality I see in front of me is this: Nintendo's online has problems. It has had problems for a while, but the difference is that they weren't charging people for it, so it wasn't as bad. It's like I said earlier, if someone isn't charging you for something, it's not as bad that if they're charging you.
yeah, yeah. And that's the thing. A lot of people were begging for, various features or yeah, since Nintendo just charged for online. If that means we can get better features. The funny thing is, with the Wii U, we had better features with
It
the
was free.
online. It was free. And then we
Yeah.
get worse features with the Switch, and
And you're being charged for it.
we're being
Yeah.
charged for it. It's like, what? Okay,
So
this
they
is
took stuff away and they're charging you for it.
yeah.
That's basically, but I mean, all these companies are doing that. And I'm not using the whataboutisms that people like to use, but Sony's doing it. Microsoft's doing it. Nintendo's doing it. They're all taking away features that should be there.
Yeah.
And personally, I'm not okay with it. I don't think it's okay to charge someone for something that should be there day one. But this is where we are right now.
Yeah, like cloud. There's really cloud saves you shouldn't have to charge for. Like that's something that should already just be there already. You shouldn't have to charge people for cloud saves.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a Nintendo online account, you should already have a certain, like, kind of like how Google does. If you have a Google online account, like a Google account, you get 15 gigabytes for cloud storage.
Yeah.
Like, you should just automatically have cloud storage, just period. You shouldn't have to be charged for that. Now, if you want like a premium version for multiple gaming devices, I could see them saying, okay, you got to put the $50 down for the premium. But I mean, I'm not cool with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not cool.
All right. Continuing with Nintendo. As you know, that they're basically shutting down the eShop. If we want to be honest, it's in a couple of months because you're not going to be able to use your credit card service. I think after it's either March or April.
Yeah.
So they're shutting it. They're really shutting it down next year, but it's going to be.
They're handicapping it now. Like next month.
Yeah, it's going to be such a hassle to get games that they've basically just shutting it down in the next couple months.
Yeah, but not surprising.
Yeah, but I'll get this. It might be a possibility within the next couple of years you might not be able to re-download your games. If
not surprising.
If the service goes down. I guess there's
not surprising.
I guess there's I think that might have been based on a rumor. I think there's some legal issues with that they have to keep those games that you bought available for at least the next 10 years or something like that. But who knows? I would find an alternative way to back your games up just in case that's not the case, because just maybe assume that you're probably not going to be able to re-download those games within the next few years. So
yeah. I mean, even though they do kind of do that, like Steam has a similar thing where certain games will be delisted and then you can like go after them after a little bit,
Yeah.
I mean, this is the world we live in. Okay. Like personally, I said this before when they announced their Nintendo Online library. I was like, I don't like how this feels. I don't like how they want to control your access to these games. I don't like the DRM where you have to connect to the internet in order to prove that you have an account every 2 weeks or something like that. And people, like, I got cursed out and called out my name because I had concerns. And now that these things are coming to fruition, people want to act like, oh, well, it's just, it is what it is. And I'm like,
we gave Microsoft and Sony such a hard time for this. But we gave them such a hard time for this. Like, these consoles with all their patches and all their updates, it's like, how are you going to access these games in the next few years when they inevitably shut down their servers? It's like, and then, Nintendo does it, it's like crickets from the usual suspects. I mean, obviously, there are people that are saying stuff about it, but,
I mean, it's BS, but you know what? At the end of the day, I have my physical versions of these games. I've ripped the ROMs myself, so I'm good. I can play these games anytime I want. For people who can't play these games anytime you want, you're going to be stuck paying $60, $50 a year. And at some point, Nintendo's probably going to add another console and tack on another 10 and call it 60. And yeah, maybe TurboGrafx 16 or something like that. That's what we're looking at, folks.
Yeah, I mean, this is why, homebrew, being able to hack your console is going to be pretty important in the future, because this is the only way you're going to be able to access, use the thing.
Yeah.
Especially with the fact that a lot of its online features are going to be gimped. So.
Well, they can shut off the servers at any time. So then you basically have like a small part of a console.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, this is the future of gaming, guys. Hope you enjoy it.
Yeah. But this is what you guys wanted, because you didn't complain. You just bought into it. So
Yeah.
People always just buying into shit. Stuff. But yeah, I mean, this is what you pay for. You get you get what you allow people to give you. And if you allow people to, not put any real effort into their online services and just kind of, just you pay for it, then this is what you get.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
About it, but that's just the way it is. I mean, unfortunately,
what are you gonna do? I mean,
the only thing you can do, the only thing I would say people should do is maybe take their money and really spend it on maybe go and buy what they want to buy from the eShop.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't mean anything to me, because I already all the games that I want on the eShop I already have on the eShop.
Yeah, I feel
So
I think there's a couple Super Nintendo games I'm probably gonna pick up, but other than that, yeah.
And to be fair, a lot of the games that are on the eShop, that Nintendo's oh, this is a sale, are actually cheaper if you get them physical.
Yeah. All right. So our last topic for the night is the mystery of the mystery of the missing RTX 3090 Ti. So, NVIDIA announced it was last month or CES their new flagship GPU, the 3090 Ti. We were supposed to get more information in the middle of that month. I think it was supposed to release at the end of the month / the beginning of this month, and nothing, no hide or hair of it. So I saw a headline saying asking if NVIDIA forgot to release their GPU, but again, I think it's probably an amalgamation of different things, such as the pressure to get some of their other GPUs that they're having trouble getting out, and maybe having a difficult time of getting a hold of
components
and stuff like that. So
yeah, because I mean, NVIDIA and AMD are fabless. They don't have their own factories. It's all shipped out, which is why the only people who can really kind of put out anything right now is Intel, because they do have their own factories. Which, to be fair, if Intel's gamble pays off, they're going to eat a lot of people's lunch.
Yeah, they're building their own factory here in the States.
Well, they're building another factory because they already have two in the States.
Yeah, building another,
and and plus they're going to buy TSMC, the semiconductor people. So, I mean, basically, I mean, and if there's one thing Intel has a lot of, it's money.
Oh yeah.
to buy stuff.
Because their processors, for the longest time, have been everywhere. Like, every freaking thing.
Even now, like, a lot of stuff Intel has their hands in. So, I mean,
They also don't, and they have chips in not just CPUs, but their Wi-Fi chips, because they also make Wi-Fi.
Yeah,
Wi-Fi
servers,
chips.
like a lot of servers are Intel. I mean, basically what I'm saying is this. Hardware have an Intel chip in them. What I'm saying is this. Intel, if Pat Gelsinger, if his 5-year plan works, Intel is going to be in very good shape. So their stock went down, but now's the time to buy some Intel stock, because if Intel pays off, you're going to make a lot of money.
Yeah. I wonder how much a share of Intel costs.
Probably a lot. I don't know exactly. But it's a smart move, because it's, I'm betting on Intel and Pat Gelsinger.
Yeah. Yeah, AMD lit a fire under him.
Yeah, this is what people don't understand is that competition is a good thing.
Yeah.
Even unfair competition is good, because it forces people to change up how they do business. Sony's BS made Nintendo focus more on their first party games.
Yeah.
And because of that, Nintendo started making really good first-party games.
Yep.
Like, much better than, it's the reason why Nintendo has the best first-party games in the industry is because they were forced to.
Yeah,
because
they only had themselves to rely on.
Yeah, they were like, oh, well, it's just us. Okay, we got to step up,
Yep.
When you're forced to rely on yourself on how to get stuff done, it makes you into a stronger company. When you have to when you know how to deal with adversity, it makes you into a stronger company. And that's where I'm like, okay, this is a good thing. I know some people will disagree, because people always disagree. Every time you say something, people have a disagreement with it. But I think it's a very good thing that Nintendo, as someone who is a fan of Nintendo's first party, as Nintendo when they got great third party support, I'm kind of upset that, that the third party support went away. But because Nintendo learned how to deal with not having third party support, they got better at it.
Yep.
They got good at making first-party games and, acquiring certain companies to do things that they couldn't do. We wouldn't have had the rare renaissance, as we call in the 5th gen, if Nintendo hadn't lost all that third-party support.
Yeah.
So it was a good thing. The end result, what seemed like a bad thing at the time, was actually a good thing for gaming, because we got better made games. We got some very iconic IPs came out during that time.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was the last topic. Is there anything else you'd like to bring up before?
No, I think we've exhausted the topics. I think we've covered everything that need to be covered. I do have something to pimp out. Tomorrow on BS Busters, we will be covering some pretty interesting topics. We're going to be covering the fall. We're going to be following the death of Nintendo Enthusiast, the website.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think think I remember that. Didn't they have a YouTube channel too?
Yeah, they did with Elias Pales. I mean, Nintendo Enthusiasts at one point was a really good site, but then they got bought up by one of those media groups that always says, "Oh, we're not gonna shut your stuff down," and inevitably the stuff eventually gets shut down.
Yeah.
Like every time, all the time.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on the show. Thanks for anybody who will watch this live or will watch the upload. This has been Project Console, episode 20. Again, we are on every Tuesdays at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. And we will catch you next one. Later.
All right.